This morning I'm going to demonstrate shortbread cookies. These cookies are originally from Scotland. They've come a long way. They originally come from the Middle Ages, and throughout the years lots of people have done different things to them. They come in different shapes and sizes. They're no longer made with leftover bread. They're now made with regular flour, sugar, butter. They are originally used for more important events like holidays and weddings, but right now we're going to use them as a Christmas cookie. The first thing we're going to do is going to sift the flour and cornstarch together. The original recipe doesn't have cornstarch in it. This just helps it to melt a little bit more in your mouth. It makes it a little bit nicer. So I have a half cup of cornstarch, and I have 1 1/4 cups of flour. I'm just going to sift those together. That'll just help to remove any larger clumps, which you can see there. These little bits of flour and cornstarch, you can press them through, but this just helps to make sure that we don't have any chunks in our cookies. The recipe calls for 1 cup of butter. This is regular salted butter. You can use unsalted or salted in Canada. The package does have a measurement scale on it, so we're going to use 1 cup. So this section right here. We're going to cut directly out of the package. Okay. Now, the recipe calls for you to cream together your butter and your icing sugar. So I have a half cup of icing sugar, but if I was to put that in right now, because this butter is still quite firm, the icing sugar would just all pop out of the bowl. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to begin to cream the butter so that it softens up through the friction with the paddle. Now that the butter has been warmed up a little bit through the friction of the paddle, I'm going to add in the half cup of icing sugar. So we're creaming this together, which means we're waiting for it to become kind of one new product. Now that the butter and sugar have been creamed together, we're going to add in the peppermint extract. During other seasons, you don't have to use peppermint extract. It's not even necessary at all, but we are making a Christmas version of a shortbread, so I'm going to add in peppermint extract. Just 1 teaspoon. I'm now going to add in our pre-mixed flour and cornstarch mixture. I'm going to add a little bit at a time, let it mix together, and then add a little bit more. I'm just going to drop a little bit in, and then I'm going to mix. I don't like to add it in when it's mixing, just in case I drop the mixer or the measuring spoon, because the mixer will try to mix this in, and it will break both the measuring equipment and the mixer. Add in another scoop, and I'll speed this process up. Now that the dough has all come together, I'm going to put it in the fridge to chill for an hour. You could also put it in the freezer for about 15 to 20 minutes. That'll just help to prevent it from being too sticky. The warmer the butter is in the mixture, the more sticky it is. So chilling it helps that process. Now that our dough has chilled, it's no longer sticky, we're going to shape it. Traditionally, this is pressed into a square pan and then poked with a fork, and then you cut it into little log shapes. We're going to use a cookie scoop so that all the cookies are the same size, and you can then either leave them in a rounded dome shape, or you can put your thumbprint in and fill them. So I'll show you both. Now if you want to just do a traditional dome-shaped cookie, that's fine. Just use 1 scoop of a cookie scoop, and then once they cook, you can just decorate them as needed. If you wanted to do the thumbprint type cookie, you kind of need to make them a little bit bigger, because otherwise the cookies aren't quite large enough for your thumb to fit in there. So you need to almost do 2 scoops and then roll them together, and then you can press your thumb in there. But who minds a bigger cookie, right? Now that I'm done rolling the cookies, I am going to put them in the oven at 350 degrees Fahrenheit for 10 to 12 minutes. There's no leavening agent in here, so they don't rise at all. They will settle down a little bit, so I will give them a little bit of space between each one, but you don't have to give them a lot of space. Now for the thumbprint version of these cookies, which are bigger, I'm going to press them down onto the cookie sheet with parchment paper. I'm going to press my thumb in, but not try to press it in so far that there's any cracking. If there is cracking, you can kind of press it back in together, but I just need to make enough of a divot to put some jam in there. So I'm just going to press my thumb in, just enough to have some jam in there. Now you can see that it's split here. I'm just going to kind of press that back together, but I've made a nice little hole in the center. And you don't have to have a lot of jam in there. You're just putting a little bit. You can use raspberry jam, you can use strawberry jam, blueberry, really any jam is fine. You could even put some dried fruit in here, or some of those maraschino cherries would go nicely. This is just strawberry jam because it's what I had on hand. Now that thumbprints are all filled with jam, I'm going to put them into the oven at 350 for 14 to 18 minutes. They won't spread just like the other ones won't. They will just kind of soften a bit, and the jam will kind of seep into all those little cracks and little nooks. Makes it very, very tasty. So these cookies just came out of the oven. They don't look like they've changed a whole lot, but if you lift them up, the bottom is golden, and that's how you know they're done. There's no eggs in these, so they don't change color the same way other cookies do. So these are done. We're gonna let them cool 100%. And then because some people claim that shortbread cookies are a little dry on the mouth, they tend to like zap all the moisture from your mouth, we're gonna put some icing on them. Here are the strawberry thumbprint cookies. They just have a nice crackled texture. They are ready to be eaten. Now to make the frosting for the shortbread cookies, I'm going to add a 1/4 cup of butter. I'm going to add a half package, which is also a half cup of cream cheese. I'm going to add a half teaspoon of peppermint extract, and then of course icing sugar, a half cup. I'm going to start by creaming the butter and cream cheese together, because once again, if I was to put the sugar in right now, it would all come piling out of the mixer. So I'm going to cream these two together, and then once they're together, I'm going to add in the peppermint extract and the sugar. You can see now how creamy the icing is. Sometimes it doesn't look like it's going to come together, but it often does. It just takes a little bit of time. It's nice and soft and smooth. I'm going to put this in a piping bag and decorate the shortbread cookies. So I'm going to fill a piping bag with the icing that I just made. So I have a tip in this bag I'm going to use. This is a Wilton D2 tip. It just means that it's a star-shaped tip. You can see it's a star thing. I'm just putting it in the end of the bag because that's easier. I don't have any of the correct size to be able to screw this over the bag, so it's going inside the bag. The bag is disposable, the tip is not. Now you can set your bag inside a cup with the edges folded over, and that'll allow you to keep the edges clean. So I'm just going to put my hand underneath the folded edge and fill it that way. So I just have the bag over my hand, and I have the icing on the spatula, and I just kind of scrape it along the edge. I don't find it useful to try and push in with the spatula, just the scraping over the top ends up pushing it into the bag all on its own. So now it's in the bag, but it hasn't come down to the bottom. So now you roll up those edges that are clean, and you can see that it's way up there. So you just push these clean edges together, hold them, and then you just squeeze the product down. Now this is a lot easier if you cut the edge off. You want to make sure you don't cut too big because you don't want your tip to come out. But now we can squeeze down. See? Quite easy. And then once our cookies are cooled, we can ice them. Just keep that twisted. A nice twist will keep enough pressure on here that you don't have to work that hard. As you can see, I'm ready to go. Now the last thing we need to do before we decorate our cookies is to get a garnish. Because the icing is white and the cookies are white. That's really boring. So we're gonna garnish with a little bit of broken candy cane. So candy cane, meat rolling pin. Now for decorating the cookies. As you can see, they're fully cold. They're a little golden on the bottom, but they're just boring white. So we're gonna put some icing on them. And in order to do that, I just twist this, so I keep nice pressure on it. And I just hold the cookie. You can kind of just make a little swirl. Kind of press down to release. You have a nice little topper of icing. And then you can just sprinkle some nice candy cane on it. And there you go. You have a little decorated shortbread cookie. Here are the finished shortbreads. The Peppermint Meltaways with their candy cane icing on top and the strawberry thumbprints. Now I can hand them out beautifully like this, or I could package them up in a nice little container as a gift for people. You can also just enjoy them.